I'd like to call the meeting to order and establish quorum and proof of notice.
Do you want to do proof of notice first?
Proof of notice was given.
Okay, I will call the roll. President? Don Wells.
Here.
Vice President Marilyn Stout. Here. Second Vice President Al Roper. Here. Secretary Molly Knotts, I'm here. Treasurer.
Here.
Bill.
Ron is here by phone.
Ron is here by phone, and Scott DeFilippis. Scott DeFilippis is absent due to health issues with family.
Okay. The residents' comments on topics on the agenda, please.
Sure, Don Swindell.
Swindell. I live at 1309 Pamplico Court, Village 1, where I serve on the board of directors as its vice president and treasurer. I have questions for the treasurer, but given the time constraints of the board meeting, I'll prepare a list with a copy to each board member. However, tonight I will ask the following. Why is the 2020 budget on the January accounting report $4,757,481? I thought the approved budget to be $3,875,232. When I went to the website to check, the only budget on the SCA website is the draft. Why isn't the approved budget out there? Or which one is correct? And what is the new income line 4145 reserve other? Thank you.
Don, I will look into that and contact you either tomorrow or Monday. Understand.
Okay.
Next.
Would that not be because the homeowner's landscaping is not in the line?
It could be. Let me double check into that. Thank you, Tamara.
Good evening. My name is Tamara Balisic, and I live on Vario Court. I'm here to speak to you on the issue of landscaping contracts. I've lived in phase 3, so my landscaping and lawn is done by Down to Earth. My experience as a homeowner since living in Sandoval is that I'm now with the 3rd landscape company. I live in a small detached villa. We have very small yards. Since having Down to Earth as our contractor, my yard keeps getting bigger, and my yard keeps getting smaller, and my landscape beds keep getting bigger. This is due to the equipment that this company has been using. It's too large. Their tire tracks continue to make my landscape beds quite large. Off and on, we have a problem with deep tire treads in the yard. I've continued to speak to them about this issue. Weeding is very inconsistent. I have to put personal work orders in when I do need weeding done, which I don't do that often, but I have to ask for it to be done on my own. Their edging practices take the edging beyond my walkway, so I have dirt exposed. I am also the Vareo liaison for my street. In October, I invited the manager of Down to Earth to walk 15 properties of homeowners who had concerns, many of the issues I just shared with you, also including irrigation. Again, what came to light is that they have a 36-inch wide mower, which is too large for our very narrow properties between our homes. We pointed that out. We said, what are you going to do when you get mulch down? And he said, well, that's going to be a problem. That has not been solved. Again, we've been told on our street we had to put personal work orders in if we have issues. I just really would like the board to look at this contract, that everything is coming for renewal in March. Please consider, number one, we have a supervisor that we're really having a lot of issues with. In 3 years, we've never had to deal with a general manager, Jerry, who has done an amazing job. When we have issues, we go to Jerry. Never have I ever, as a homeowner, had to deal with a Sandoval general manager to oversee a landscape company as much as I have. The equipment is not working in our yards. And as a homeowner, you know, I purchased in here so that I had carefree landscaping. I didn't have to worry about it. I should not be managing the landscaping that I have paid for to be carefree. So I really would like you to consider this contract with Down to Earth. They are not doing a sufficient job. And you know, I'd like you to look into that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. We need to approve the past meeting minutes. Has everyone read the minutes? Are there any corrections?
I did see where we had, in the last board meeting, we reaffirmed a contract, and that was not in the board minutes. So if we would put that back in, I would appreciate it.
I'm not understanding. I apologize.
There was, I didn't bring my paper with me. We reaffirmed before noise enforcement policy, there was another reaffirmation which
Oh,
was
okay.
voted on, and that needs to go into the
Do
minutes.
you recall what business that was? The
I can-
affirmation?
I can give it to you
Okay.
after the meeting, but there was one addition that goes in there. It was just accidentally skipped. And it was a reaffirmation of what we had done the month before.
Okay.
Everyone agree to add that to the minutes?
I move we accept the minutes as amended.
Okay. Okay. All in favor of accepting the minutes as amended? In favor? Okay. President's report.
We have 3 sets of minutes. Did we cover all 3, or was that the only issue on all
That
3
was
sets?
the only issue.
Okay, so,
So we acknowledge, at this point, there are 3 sets of minutes,
Thank you.
so let's acknowledge and approve this minutes number 2 and 3. Okay. All in favor? Okay. My president's report. Your HOA board has been working overtime since our last meeting in January. We have several positive announcements to make tonight, and I also need to report to you a challenge that will be requiring our future attention. I cannot emphasize enough how well this group of board members have worked together over the past year to the benefit of the entire community. This group has no we or they in their vocabulary, nor in their actions. It is a group that has worked to solve problems and to accomplish the will of our community. I personally want to thank everyone for the opportunity to have served as your board president over the past 12 months. Our community needs to go forward with positive message from all residents. The past is not the future, and we all need to be looking forward with an attitude towards solving our problems by offering solutions. The Clubhouse Improvement Project now has a concept plan, a vetted architect contract, and a civil engineering proposal. I will let the committee present the details to everyone. With the help of the Capital Improvement Committee and the negotiation skills of Al Roper and Linda Moody, the parking lot project is ready to begin. This project has 7 moving parts. That is to say, coordination and separate contracts have all been negotiated and vetted. Each of these pieces are now linked together. You will be getting a report from this committee again later in the meeting. After speaking with our architect last Friday, I personally contacted our surveyor to get an updated recertified survey which will include the clubhouse area in addition to the playground, bocce, and basketball courts. When this update is completed and the architect evaluates this information, he will then be in a position to give us the green light for the sunshade installation. This contact to the surveyor should expedite this process. Communications in an area that our community can take great pride in as a result. What I'm saying is our communications committee is an area that our community can take great pride in the result. These folks have worked hard, or harder than the board, to keep you informed and up to date. I would encourage more members of our community to pool their efforts to the Sandoval communications. Several areas in the communications need redundancy so that they are open to more volunteers. Please consider lending a hand with your talents. Our Sandoval landscaping has never looked better, and I want to personally acknowledge the efforts of Allison Johnson and her committee with the great advancements and the constant eyes on that our landscapers know are upon them. Now, I understand what you're saying, Tamara, and I'm talking about the common area landscaping. As with any vendor, improvements are always possible and desired. Our recent RFP for the common area landscape contract is filled with performance-based objectives. With these provisions in the contract, we will better be able to measure their performance quickly. A contract approval will be discussed and a vendor selected later on in the meeting. So with that, I'd say let the meeting begin. Treasurer's report.
Okay, January 31 financial highlights. The association completed the year 2019 with a loss of $24,208 pre-audit dollars. The audit is currently underway, and we should have the auditor's report opinion letter soon. The item construction in progress remains on our balance sheet in the amount of $122,996. We've received the $20,000 settlement check from Gersdorf, and it will be posted to reduce the $122,000 to $102,000 shortly. January's financials have been posted to our homeowners website for your review, and in them we collected $235,443 in homeowner assessments for the month of January, transferred $46,542 to the telecom fund, and finished the month with a positive $43,943. At January 31, the balances in the reserve fund and the telecommunications surplus fund were $2,405,671 and $2,019,621 respectively. We did a reconciliation of the telecom fund. We contribute $44,802 monthly to the fund, and for the next 11 months of 2020, we'll add $492,822 to that fund. That's what I get for looking up. We've commitments for projects either planned or in progress of $283,000 and have set a not-to-exceed clubhouse budget, which includes a contingency of $200,000 of $2,013,000 to come from our telecom fund, which our construction manager agrees with. This should leave us at December 31st, 2020 with approximately $216,443 in the telecom fund and a clubhouse expansion ready for a CO in January or February of 2021. There's no CDs maturing in January or February. The next maturing CD is on March 16th, 2020. Interest rates currently available seem to be on the uptick. The Finance Committee has scheduled a local bank trust officer to come to our March meeting to discuss alternatives to our current investments and the risk associated with any changes we might consider. Mr. Jason Warren, the head of accounting for Pope Properties, met with the Finance Committee Tuesday night and informed us that Mutual of Omaha will soon discontinue the CD program we currently use and migrate to another. We will be meeting with their representatives soon to discuss exactly what this program will be. The report of the December 12th meeting of the Finance Committee is incorporated herein. A discussion of the January financial statements. The investment policy discussion continued as per the previous item. A discussion of Pope Properties' new automated accounts payable processing program. And we invited a local banker to attend our March meeting to discuss investment alternatives so that the committee may study possible policy changes to recommend to the board for later action. And that's it.
Thank you, Bill. The General Manager's report.
I have 3 topics to discuss today. The first is deed restriction enforcement. Beginning in August of 2020, the past 7 months since hiring a full-time compliance manager, the association has sent over 600 violation letters relating to items ranging from dirty roofs, mailbox maintenance, tree pruning, home painting, driveway cleaning, weeds, bare turf, soil compaction, unapproved improvements, trash cans, and many others. The vast majority of owners are clearing the more minor violations. However, we are experiencing a challenge with the more significant violations. In efforts of improving the time it takes to cure a violation, effective immediately, all violation letters going out will include as penalties suspension of vehicle tag access, ID card access, and home leasing to those owners in violation of HOA rules and regulations. Further, I'm actively seeking a legal opinion on suspending cable television and internet access to those in violation of HOA rules and regulations. Naturally, these penalties will not go into effect until the owner has had an opportunity for a hearing as statutorily mandated. Bottom line here is that 6 months ago, I informed the board it may take up to a year to turn things around. Now, 6 months in, we have seen very little change in the significant type of violations being cured. It is my belief these additional enforcement tools, coupled with some internal improvements, will help us get on the right track to success. Thank you to the vast majority of homeowners who support these efforts and take pride in their home and comply with deed restrictions. It is a well-proven fact that strict compliance with these rules improves your investment of your home ownership. Next update is about Mary Mondello. She has an illness, and it's pretty serious. She's been gone since Wednesday, went to ER, went to the hospital. I'm told it's a life-threatening illness, but that she is not in a life-threatening situation. But we're looking at about 3 or 4 weeks until she returns, and we hope that it's 3 or 4 weeks until she returns. In the interim, I mean, the board internally is already talking about, I think you guys who attended the board candidates meeting probably heard some comments on that. We're already looking at staffing levels right now anyway. I believe we're already a person down to accomplish the things that we need to for the community and bringing up the standards. Now with this absence, we are really operating on a shoestring. I've already contacted 3 temp agencies, local ones, and I don't have any opportunities right now, but in the coming days, I hope to have a temp to permanent hire, and hopefully we will not need to exercise the permanent nature of it. But if those of you who have worked in the business area that have hired these folks before, number one is we hope it's just a temporary hire, but worst case scenario for us, if we needed to hire someone permanently, it obviously gives us the opportunity to test this person out in real time before we make that decision. So again, we're looking at 3 to 4 weeks until she returns, but if you see someone new in the office, I wanted to explain to everyone what is going on there. The next item of business is insurance. Our current insurance policies expired last Saturday, February 22nd. Our broker waited until the last minute to inform us that our liability carrier deemed us as a non-renewed community due to our loss run history. Our broker sent an email 1 week ago, at which time I immediately informed the board. It was just 3 days before expiration. The board had an emergency meeting last Friday afternoon to discuss the options. Other brokers were consulted during the session, and we were able to better the current broker's proposal and limit our liability still to a staggering 500% increase in our premium, going from $30,000, we had a $34,000 budget this year, to $158,000. Other brokers were dismayed with the lack of transparency on the part of the broker when in fact he knew 60 days in advance that we were in a non-renew status. He in fact knew we were in for a real hit when the board was conducting workshops and setting our budget. The increase the broker relayed to us at the time was no more than a 15% increase, which we included in the approved budget. I suggest that we establish an ad hoc insurance committee to assist us in vetting and soliciting additional quote options in hopes of further reducing this liability. This committee would also be helpful to establish the protocols needed when we do have a claim and to be sure our best interests are being protected. And that concludes my report.
Okay.
President, I would like to move that we adopt an ad hoc insurance committee.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
I have something for discussion. Do we want to appoint a board member or board members to chair or co-chair that committee? I think for us to get momentum, that would be good to do. And I would suggest two possibilities, Ron Spooner and Bill Tubb, if they would be willing to consider doing that. I know.
They have nothing
Right.
else to do, you
I
know.
know.
Um,
I know.
Why don't we make that a second motion after this one?
Okay.
But I moved and Bill seconded a motion to adopt an insurance ad hoc committee.
Are you going to develop a charter for that committee?
That'll be what we meet on and develop that charter, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so any further discussion? All in favor of having an ad hoc insurance committee established immediately, please notify by raising your hand. Thank you. Okay, we will do that, and I would like to, get the charter and determine what the makeup would be as soon as we can.
Mr. President, I will also move to have Bill Tubb and Ron Spooner as the liaisons to that committee.
Second.
Discussion?
You've just been,
Willingness?
you have been put out on,
I think I can limit the time you guys spend. Number one, I'm going to draft the charter, and yeah.
Okay. All right. Then I think that my comment is I think those are two good choices, and I would like to then call the vote. Would everyone be willing to have those two head our new insurance ad hoc committee? All in favor? Okay. And the clubhouse improvement.
We have 3 board members that,
I teed you up.
okay, well, we have made significant progress. Recently, we have engaged and negotiated and signed a contract with an architect who has provided us a pretty good rendering. We've also reviewed and are about to sign a contract with our civil engineer. Those are 2 vitally important steps that will lead us to the path forward. In terms of schedule, we are still on schedule for the end of 2020 or early 2021. And when we say early, we expect January, February, the latest. The committee continues to meet. We just met recently and continuing to get community input. But I think we have a consensus now, and we'll be able to share a rendering with the community very soon. But I think at this point we've ironed out most of the details, and we see a very, very clear path forward. On the finance end, we've worked out all the details to ensure that we will be able to pay for this, and on a timely basis. So I'm quite confident that the project will be done on time and in budget. And I just thank the committee for working so hard and diligently. But I'm extremely optimistic with our progress.
Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
And your TM litigation is the next one.
Our Taylor Morrison Litigation Committee, we now meet every Monday with our counsel, Paul Sangiovanni and Jonathan Huffman of Morgan & Morgan. Our counsel now has a list of all of our outstanding Phase 3 expenses we incurred that we feel that we should recover, and the supporting documentation. We have recently scheduled an evaluation of all 3 phases of our lakes, including the lake banks and the lake beds. We're going to have a consultant likely in the first week of March. That is significant progress, especially for our Phase 3 transition. We continue to be very, very impressed with Paul Sangiovanni and Jonathan Huffman, who is a resident of Sandoval. And we are giving these claims every opportunity to be successful, and I'm pleased with our progress.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ron. Capital improvement projects, Al?
wall progressing very good. I've had a lot of positive comments about the appearance of the new wall. It seems to be very solid. That being said, anytime you put a shovel into the ground, you never know what you're going to hit. On the section that is completed, they hit a lot of cap rock. Their plan was to sink those columns down with an 18-inch auger and sink them down 55 inches and then fill it up with concrete. However, they weren't, once they hit this rock, they couldn't get to 55 inches, but they still have to, in order to certify the wall for 150 mile an hour hurricane winds, they have to put the same amount of concrete. So instead of going 55 inches down, they go maybe 36 inches down, but they have to go that much wider. I saw some holes that were big enough to put a coffin in. So I'm glad that I will not be around when that wall has to be taken out, because they will be using jackhammers to take that thing out. On the other side, on the Somerville, I'm sure we all know that they hit an unprotected fiber optics cable. And like again, anytime you put a shovel in the ground, you risk that. Plastic water lines, irrigation lines, those are expected to be hit. Of course, the fiber optics was not. However, that particular fiber optics cable was laid underneath the existing wall. So stuff like that does happen. On the parking lots, we've got all the contracts signed. They have called in to one call. The city was out today marking the water lines. And we also got the dog park, the Happy Paws dog park, split in half today so that the residents can still utilize the dog park. It is a temporary fence, so please watch your dogs around that portion of the fence. But you should be able to utilize the dog park until all the construction is done. That's my report.
Okay, thank you. Sunshade. My comment is that I'm in favor of getting the sunshade put up immediately, and when Bill Tubb and I went to Fort Myers last Friday to visit with the architect, they had been hesitant to give us the go-ahead for that because the playground is not surveyed, and they wanted the civil engineer contract, and I said, is that necessary, or what do you need? And he needed an updated survey that included the playground. And so immediately upon returning home, I personally called and got a proposal, signed it, and as soon as they get out here to do it, it will go right back to the architect. He will compare that to what he feels is this distance, which was about 15 to 16 feet, and if that number is verified, then the sunshade can go up as soon as you can get them out here.
Since Scott's not here, I'm the member of the committee here. I'd like to inform the community that the sunshade has been fabricated. It is currently in storage with the contractor, ready to go up. Just waiting on our go-ahead. So thank Don for getting that survey underway, and it should be finished in just a couple of days. Once that's done, we'll give the contractor the go-ahead to commence, assuming there's not a conflict. And depending on his schedule for getting his people back here, we should have it up shortly.
Okay. Electronic voting.
Our original goal was to sign up 300 residents for electronic voting. I'm pleased to report that we are at 549 residents that have signed up for electronic voting. That is a significant accomplishment and saves a tremendous amount of resources. That also includes residents, all those residents that have opted into receiving correspondence only electronically. Currently, out of the 500, 349 electronic voters. We have 382 that have registered to vote in this election. That is, again, very significant. Out of the 171 homeowners that have not registered yet, we'd just say if you have any questions, you need any assistance, feel free to reach out to me, the Communications Committee, Doug Willett, Denise Neifeld, Lee Brohl, or the front office. If you need any help with voting, please let us know. We'd be happy to help, and frankly, that's what we're here for. We continue to meet every Friday for multiple hours as a committee to make sure that the process is running smoothly, and we are very, very confident in the security and the reliability of electronic voting thus far. And I cannot emphasize enough how much work some of our volunteers have put into this project. Denise and Lee, in addition to the hours that they meet every single week, have just done such tremendous work here. And I personally believe in surrounding myself with good, competent people, and I far exceeded that standard, and I cannot express my gratitude enough. They've done a tremendous service to this community. So, and that's where we stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Old business, bar, parking lots.
So the first business is the bar for the parking lots is, if you might recall, last meeting we made a decision to go ahead and include any funding out of the bulk telecommunications as a requirement for a bar, as we have traditionally done for reserves. So basically this is, I'm looking for a motion and a second for the board to approve this bar of funds which were approved at the last board meeting.
Okay.
I'll move to approve.
Any discussion? Second? Any discussion?
I just want to confirm that bar, on that bar, 50,000 of that bar is coming from the telecommunications fund, from the clubhouse budget, and the balance of it is coming from telecommunications.
Yes, and for the audience's benefit, on the notes on the bar, it says all 140,000 of the expense will be funded through the bulk telecommunications fund. However, 50,000 of the expense will be deducted from the 1.9 million earmarked for clubhouse expansion.
Mm-hmm. Good. That was the agreement. Any other discussion? Let's vote. All in favor of approving the bar for the clubhouse, for the parking lots at the dog park and the tennis court? Okay, the next one is tree pruning.
I'll go ahead and read the bar. It's short for the audience. Requested from reserve line item 4.500. The reserve study called for $50,000 in 2019 for potential periodical updates to the appearance of the community through improvements to the landscape, which was unused in 2019. Under description, at the January 23rd Board of Directors meeting, the board approved $65,000 in tree trimming expense, $50,000 of which was pre-approved as a bar from reserves. On January 30th, 2020, a proposal was approved from Crawford Landscaping to perform the tree trimming on all hardwoods on cul-de-sacs, medians, and boulevards throughout the community for a cost of $65,000, and the tree trimming commenced this month. So I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve this bar.
Second?
The motion is to approve 65,000.
No, it's 50.
Yeah,
50 from the
50
bar.
from the bar.
The other 15 is coming from the operations budget. Line item tree trimming. Okay, discussion. Okay, all in favor of approving the tree trimming, pruning from the bar, $50,000 reserve fund? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Delinquent account suspensions. There's only one new account highlighted in blue that has a delinquency greater than $50 for a period more than 90 days. Accounts highlighted in yellow have already been suspended accordingly. I recommend the board make a motion to suspend the following account from leasing their home, suspend vehicle access decals, suspend common area access cards, and voting at duly held meetings where voting by members is authorized. Looking for a motion to approve.
Marilyn seconds. Discussion? All in favor? Raising your hand. Okay. Fines for deed restrictions?
Following there are 7 violations, we're requesting the board issue a $100 fine for. And again, in the future, we will have additional penalties, but legislation requires that our letters go out and state those penalties prior to imposition. So for these, we're seeking the $100 fine. All accounts of fine will receive a hearing letter for March 18th where the committee will either uphold the fine or strike the fine based on evidence presented by the HOA and the resident. I recommend the board make a motion to fine each of the 7 $100 as presented.
Is there a second? Okay, discussion. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor of the fines? Raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, April board meeting date change.
Due to a conflict with the general manager's schedule, I'm recommending the Thursday, April 23rd, 2020 Board of Directors meeting be moved up 1 day. The new meeting date will be Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020 at the same time, 6 p.m. As a result, the board approved 2020 meeting dates would be as follows. Wednesday, April 22nd, which is the changed, and then the other 2 pre-approved are Thursday, May 28th and Thursday, June 25th, all at 6 p.m. As discussed at the December meeting, meeting dates through the balance of the year will be established at the May 28th Board of Directors meeting. I recommend the board make a motion to approve moving the April 23rd, 2020 Board of Director meeting to Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020.
I'll make that motion to change to April 22nd.
Second?
Okay, discussion? All in favor? Is there any reason that we would need to wait until May to establish the second half of the year's board meetings?
I think the reason we were waiting is to monitor the new GL accountant at Pope and the fact that rolling out the web-based AP system might make invoices come in quicker, which might make less people that would pay their bills late, which is causing the financials to move out. They want to do less accruals, basically, and we thought that the system would naturally lessen the accruals, but I don't think there's been enough data. We've only had the system for a month or 2, so I think May would probably be appropriate. I can almost assure everybody it's going to be typically the same schedule. The 4th Thursday is what we're looking at, and then there's 2 dates, Thanksgiving and Christmas, would be moved up 1 week, and the only chance we might have is moving everything up to the 3rd, but we were waiting to see what the effects of the AP system would do with those accruals.
Well, and in a realistic sense, from my governmental experience, one board doesn't set meetings that another board would have to meet. There'll be a new board seated by then, and that might conflict with their schedule, so
Fair
we
enough.
should let them set those meetings.
Fine. Okay. The next item is the Insurance Policy Ad Hoc Committee, which you've already done. The next one is the Clubhouse Expansion Architects Contract. We would like to have discussion, board approval of that before it is signed.
I evaluated the contract. I sent the contract off to our construction counsel, George Knott, a very well-respected attorney with a long local presence here. He made a number of significant changes, and we added an addendum. All of our revisions were accepted by Tyler, and so I think we have an agreement, to say the least.
Okay.
I can support it because, just to what Ron said, he's been at work for us and doing a good job, and this is just finalizing that arrangement.
Right. And he really has done all of his conceptual work and hasn't been paid for anything at this point, where that signature of that contract would then obligate us to the $15,000 retainer for the contract.
He definitely showed a lot of good faith.
Yeah.
And I might mention that this contract has specific points of payment in it where the previous architect had nothing like that. So we'll know we get goods for services for funds.
Do I have a motion to,
So moved.
I'll second.
any more discussion?
I just want to make sure that I mentioned this to Ron, that the CAD for the architectural designs belongs to us, that we will always have the CAD.
That is correct.
Well, that's what he's agreeing to. If he tries not to give it to us, we'd have to
Yeah, but I
sue
just,
him to get them, but we've got a contract that says they're ours.
that was a problem before, and I just wanted to double check on it.
Very fair question.
Any other questions, discussion? Is everyone in favor of approving the architect's contract for the clubhouse expansion? Okay, we'll get that signed and at the end of the meeting. You'd sign it. Okay, the clubhouse expansion civil engineering contract. If you would speak on that, please.
Sure. The civil engineering contract is a bit different. That was done in the past. In the past, that was it was a sub of the architect's contract. This will be an independent agreement directly with the civil engineer. We have received a proposed contract. I've reviewed it with our counsel, George Knott. He has just a few minor revisions, but the contract is with Avalon Engineering, a very well-respected company with a long-standing history in Cape Coral. And I anticipate a final revision being sent to them in the next day or two. But in terms of the changes that we have made, I'm confident, as long as they're accepted, that I personally could recommend going forward with the contract.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve
I'll
that
make
contract?
motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have discussion?
Well, Avalon Engineering is a great firm. They do a lot of business in this city. So
Yeah.
I feel good about this
Me
this motion.
Yes. They did our drawings, the engineer drawings for our parking lots. I will also tell you how the process is working. Our construction project construction manager sent out bids to 5 different architectural, or not architects, civil engineering firms, and he got those all back. He created a spreadsheet of what they all had. There was some discussion with some of these firms that were in Fort Myers as to the changes in the city of Cape Coral from to a PUD instead of the
PDP?
right, instead of PDP, and they were sure that that would require redoing all that original work that we had gotten approved, and Avalon saw that as no problem at all. And with Avalon being a well-respected firm with the city of Cape Coral, I feel that what the work that they do is looked at with a different eye than someone who might.
They also did the Pine Island Gate.
They did that too. So they have been in our community a lot. So
I'd also add that Mark Stevens, our construction manager, has helped us significantly in not only helping us evaluate the different contractors, but negotiating price, and we've already seen some significant savings there, especially with the architect.
yeah, that's a fact. And he helped us with our parking lot bidding at no cost. Okay, so any other discussion? Then I would ask that we vote to accept the civil engineering contract as revised by George Knott upon receipt.
I agree.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. The
Can we
side
get
note.
Can we move off the agenda for just a second? Should
Sure.
the board approve your authorization for the $800 for Stoughton?
I think that would be appropriate, yes. Let's do that. Let's add that in.
I move that the board approve the contract that Don Wells signed with Stoughton engineer, what's?
Yes, Jeff Stoughton.
With Jeff Stout.
Ardura. Yeah, Ardura.
To complete the survey of the clubhouse expansion playground area.
And recertification of the existing one, which is required. It has to be within 6 months. So that will be done, and it will also be a reduction on the civil engineering contract, because that's something we'll be able to provide to them and can be taken out of their line items.
And
Oh, sure.
That was what, $800?
$865.
I move we approve that.
Okay. Jeff Stoughton, Stouten, and it's Ardura. A-R-R. There you go, 2 R's later. Okay. Did we vote?
We need to call the question.
Okay, that's good. We need to vote. Okay, everybody in favor of voting for the survey that will be done by Ardura, and it would then reduce our civil engineering contract by that amount. Okay, thank you. Okay, now the next item is the landscape contract, which we have been anticipating, and that has been a long time in the making, and was very significant in detail with quality control checks and balances, which no contract for landscaping prior to that had. So let's turn the floor over to Jerry so he can discuss that contract.
First of all, before I go into my exact memo, I'd like to thank the Finance Committee for their help with the RFP development, which was instrumental in accomplishing what Don just said and creating some good performance-based terms. On January 10th, 2020, the association distributed landscape requests for proposals to 5 contractors: Crawford, Down to Earth, Brightview, Landcare, and Juniper. On January 22nd, 2020, the association held a pre-bid meeting with all contractors. On February 10th, 2020, all 5 contractors submitted proposals. On February 24th and 25th, just this week, I met with each board member to review the RFP and synopsis of results. The current common area landscape contract costs $300,000 per year. The contract was due to expire on December 31st, 2019. However, Crawford agreed to extend the expiration date to March 31, 2020. The 2020 budget for landscaping contract was increased from $300,000 to $390,000 to accommodate the addition of Phase 3 common area maintenance, perimeter maintenance, and other increases in scope to start getting us back up to the standards of the community. It is my recommendation that the Board of Directors vote to award Crawford Landscape a 3-year agreement commencing on April 1, 2020 at an annual cost of $386,025, which is $3,975 under the annual budget amount. Of note, in year 1, we will save an additional $21,506 due to extending our agreement until April 1, 2020. A highlight of terms not included in the current contract, which will be in our new agreement, are as follows. The most important, in my opinion, is the termination clause. The agreement provides for no cost increases to the scope over the full 3-year period. However, it allows for a 30-day termination with cause and a 90-day termination without cause. The inclusion of Phase 3 common area landscaping is another addition, currently being maintained by Crawford free of charge. This agreement also includes maintaining the outside perimeter of Sandoval. The maintenance area varies depending on location, however, it averages approximately 10 feet in width around the entire community. Annual change out of flowers at the flagpole and at the clubhouse will now be included in the agreement. Some of you may remember, in order to get our 2020 budget down to an acceptable level, one of the cuts we made was the 3 change-outs a year. Instead, we budgeted $10,000 to plant some perennials to take their place. Realizing we may leverage a better price if we include it in the RFP, we did, and were able to get the change-outs and still came in under budget with the contract. Next, the agreement also calls for coconut palm trimming twice per year. This was previously funded through tree trimming. Being able to get these 2 trimmings essentially freed up enough money, along with the reserve funds that we just did a borrow on, approved last month, to trim all the trees in Sandoval, including the boulevard trees, which has been going on for a couple of weeks now. Another addition is to the contractor 4 additional mowings per year. Not having to hope Mother Nature allows us to squeak by with less mowings during the season changes, this addition will bring us to an acceptable standard of mowing frequencies in Southwest Florida. The agreement also calls for an increase in fertilization and weed control from 2 occurrences to 3. We've only been able to fertilize twice per year, which has been well below standards for communities such as Sandoval. Also realizing weed control is one of our biggest challenges. The agreement requires continually ensuring the property is weed-free, both in landscape beds and turf. In turf areas, turf to be continually kept free from weeds, both broadleaf and grassy weeds, as well as the crabgrass, torpedo grass, and sedge. Landscape contractors are required to recognize and point out Bermuda-type invasives at first sight. Spot treating of Bermuda before it takes over a whole area. The agreement also emphasizes weed spray is not to be used as an edger at grass shrubs and tree borders. Also included is an increase in shrub and tree trimmings from 8 occurrences to 10 occurrences, as well as a specification that community trees must be maintained 12 feet within the community and 16 feet on roadways. Lastly, the new contract includes a robust level of terms and conditions, such as detailed scope of services for each area and for each category of service, site maps, correlating specific maintenance requirements for each area, instructions to contractors utilizing best practices, a provision outlining the manner of contractors' performance, clear insurance requirements and indemnification terms to protect the HOA, cost control requirements which will prevent the contractor from charging the HOA for unauthorized work, and as we spoke to prior, a favorable termination provision which protects us against cost increases and future decreases in performance levels. Over the past year, through the work of Landscape Chairperson Allison Johnson, the HOA has developed a true partnership with Crawford that has benefited the community through savings of tens of thousands of dollars in project costs. With their proposal coming in almost $4,000 under our budget, they are an easy recommendation to make. Prior to the announcement of the contract going out for bid, we procured a bid from Crawford to clean up the perimeter of Sandoval. The amount was $30,000, which in our estimate was a favorable amount given the years of neglect most of the areas have endured. Nevertheless, with money being an issue, we negotiated with them to provide that service free of charge. More than just that one example of partnering with us for a benefit of a long-term relationship, Crawford has demonstrated a willingness to think outside the box, further saving us money on projects by agreeing to leverage their ability to utilize on-site staff to perform labor on various projects, whereas other companies have charged an hourly labor rate for those type of initiatives. Also critical to our support of Crawford is the importance of maintaining our trees within the community. Not enough can be said about the beauty and value of our trees, likely regarded as one of Sandoval's greatest assets. The fact that Crawford owns their own arbor division and employs one of the top arborists in the state speaks volume to their commitment in that regard. Crawford has proven over time their ability to increase the level of landscaping in Sandoval. Given the resources and adequate funding this agreement provides, I believe they will make a further substantial positive impact on the community. It's my recommendation that the board make a motion to authorize the association to enter into a 3-year agreement, common area landscape maintenance agreement with Crawford Landscaping commencing on April 1, 2020 at an annual cost of $386,025. I'm looking for that motion.
We have a motion. Did someone make a motion? Okay. You have a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay. Do we have discussion?
For discussion purposes and for transparency, I feel like we should tell the community Crawford was not the low bid, but that from what we've heard tonight and what we've heard other places, we feel like it was the best bid and are proceeding on that.
Fair.
I would also say that I think the comments that are in the residence section in the beginning of the meeting would substantiate the remarks. Sorry.
What impressed me the most about Crawford was the insect control and the fertilization. Those two items, I think, are very, very important. And the low bidder was not doing nearly what Crawford was going to do. So that helped me make up my mind that Crawford was that, and the fact that they have been a good company to deal with. And that's important.
I would just add to that, I think this was some exceptional work by Jerry and Allison. The contract removes a lot of the vagueness and ambiguities of the prior contract that were used to either not perform certain areas or charge us for it. I think that the contract is very, very well done. We have a very strong map now for areas of responsibility. So thank you, Allison and Jerry, for your work on this. And I certainly in support of going forward with Crawford.
I join you in thanking Allison. Jerry was being paid for it. We expect that from him. Allison got paid nothing, and she put in a bunch of hours. So
She sure
we owe
did.
her a big vote of thanks.
It's a quality product, though.
Any other discussion? Okay, I call the question. Everybody in favor of accepting the Crawford proposal for the landscaping for the next 3 years, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, so moved.
Next item is the Hayden Lane landscape contract. The current agreement for Hayden Lane is $20,000 per year. The 2020 budget, we were able to lower it to $18,450. Our preferred contractor, Crawford, came in at $22,628, which is $4,178 higher than the budget. However, I believe there are two areas we can save that will put them under the budget number. Pruning of shrubs, ground cover, and pruning of trees, each were bid prior to the removal of mature landscaping along Hayden Lane outside the perimeter wall. I've spoken to the owner of Crawford. He's agreed to take the change in landscape into consideration and feels comfortable he'll be able to reduce his bid. And my belief after speaking to him, my firm belief, is that I will be able to get the terms under $18,450 budget. Therefore, it is my recommendation the board make a motion to authorize the association to enter a 3-year Hayden Lane maintenance agreement with the same terms with Crawford Landscaping, commencing on April 1, 2020 at an annual cost not to exceed the 2020 budget amount of $18,450.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. I would point out that the Hayden Lane landscape contract is also shared with
50% we get back from the entities.
the shopping center, Surfside. So our outlay on that would be $9,225.
Correct.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the Crawford proposal for the Hayden Lane at not to exceed the budgeted amount? Okay, so moved.
Last item is mulch, and we made a decision to separate mulch from the agreement after we received the numbers. And so Allison and I thought it would be more prudent to bid that out competitively 90 days prior to when we mulch. Crawford's mulch number was higher than our budgeted, so in all likelihood we will not use Crawford. We have a couple of other options, but the challenge there is that the mulch numbers that came in were contingent on receiving the contract. So while we are very, very comfortable based on the numbers coming in, we will get that number under budget. We just wanted to bid it out separately, so there will be no board business with mulch tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's done with the landscapes. You done with landscape?
Yes.
Okay. I'm soliciting additional agenda items from the board. Are there any other items that the board would like to discuss tonight? That being said, then I would like to Get a motion to adjourn. Second? And all in favor of adjourning? Our meeting is adjourned, and it's now open for open forum residents' comments.
Yeah. Tell me your name. Okay, thanks. Oh, Marlene, yeah. Okay, sorry. Hey, all right. Yeah. Thanks. Grady? Stevens?
Before we begin, we don't have Eric here with his timer, but these comments should be restricted to 3 minutes.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Bill, if you would, either you or Marty text me about what you're wearing. A couple of questions, and this is really for the benefit of people who aren't here for this meeting and who can't ask these questions, social media, if you will. The first one was, Jerry, when you were talking about the change to penalties or punishments for people who don't abide by
HOA rules and
receiving a
regulations.
violation, right? And my first thought was, wow, that's really that's quite a bit. You know, I was shocked at first. Then it occurred to me, I've seen a number of violations. A resident has a propane tank on the side of their home for heating their pool. It's been there for years. It seems that I remember that, if you guys remember Sean Wilson, it seems that I remember him telling me that they had charged him the maximum they could for violation. There was nothing else they could do. So I'm presuming, and people just want to hear that once you run out of options that are legally allowed, that you have to come up with something new. And I'm presuming that's where this is coming from.
Yeah, I would add one thing, and it's very careful that I make a clarification. I actually called the city of Cape Coral a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and talked to them about that propane tank. And they have since violated that person. And the point there is that we do have these other methods, but the city of Cape Coral can help us in quicker and sometimes harder in the pocketbook and more effectively than the HOA can, because we're state legislated and the city has a little bit more larger parameters to use. And the reason I wanted to make that parameter, I've contacted the city twice to help us with deed restriction violations like that have been hard and challenging. But there was another situation that has been talked about recently about trash cans, and I just want to make it clear that the HOA did not involve the city with that initiative. So,
thank you very much for clarifying that. The next concern I had is that when we talked about the increase in the insurance premium, that was quite a shock. I think that anybody recognizes that if my premium went up 500%, I would be moving or not driving the car anymore, that type of thing. But I didn't really hear any expansion on detail as to why they were doing this. I'm presuming that we have some type of, Don, did you say there were claims or something?
Loss run. They have a loss run report that they run on the claims that are pending, that are involving our community, and it involves your neighbors.
Got it.
None in 2019, though.
No, there were none in
Okay.
2019.
and we are aggressively looking to defend ourselves against those claims.
Good. Okay. Last but not least, and I know I didn't write this one down, so I'll make it
Okay,
very
your
quick.
3 minutes is up.
Okay,
Let-
I'm
he
done.
can-
He's at 2:07 because I stopped him.
No, he's
Well-
3:12.
Well, what I would say, this is related to the Hayden Lane portion of it, where they were putting up the new wall. We all lost internet, so we lived through that. Let's not do it again. But the new wall that's being built, some people are getting on social media and they're saying, well, why don't we put the wall down down Surfside? They don't need it on Verdmont. Well, I think a lot of people don't recognize what you guys recognize, and a lot of other people do, that when Bonita Bay developed us, that was a chain link fence and that was a wall. We're simply replacing what was there existing.
Correct.
Thank you.
Like the clubhouse, if we want a wall on Surfside, we all have to decide that that's what we want, and we have to pay for it. It's not an issue of somebody getting something that we can't get. We would all like a wall on Surfside, but it's just not going to happen in this climate.
I would also say that the Verdmont wall and the Somerville wall that is being replaced is on HOA property, and the Surfside wall would not be.
Good point. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thanks, Grady. Jim Swigert.
Jim Swigert, Greendale. Hayden Lane. The wall's up. The landscaping looks like zero. Is the contractor correcting the landscaping?
No, we'll be doing that. We'll be doing
Then
that.
why are we having Crawford? If we're doing that, is it coming out of reserves?
Part of the project.
Because you're giving Crawford $18,000 to mow the grass. That's a lot of money for that area, I feel. And I don't know what you're gonna put back in there. You're gonna put flowers, you're gonna put plants,
Allison has a plan.
huh?
Allison has a plan.
Okay.
And what you're saying is exactly the area that I'm being able to save money on for that reason. But as Don said, there will be landscaping there for them. to
And
take
there was an offer by Crawford prior to trimming those bushes that had been there a long time. So we have that already in place, which was a very favorable plan. And then it turns out that they took out some of the roots of the ones that we were hoping they would leave. So that'll change a little, but I don't think it's going to be exorbitant.
Okay. I have one more. Stormwater is in the financial statement all over this report, financial report for January. I don't understand. We had one item, I don't remember the line item number, for stormwater, $15,000. Now I see it everywhere in here. I'd like to know why there's a line item here, line item stormwater. I'm interested in that, what that
I'd
means.
like for you to come in and meet with me next week, and let's look at the budget together, and I'll fully explain it to you. All right, Jim.
You're way under. You got another minute.
No, when they're talking and we start hopping back to them,
He stops it.
Yeah,
does that time count as
Yeah.
3 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, if you filibuster, they don't get to talk.
Well, I'm not trying to filibuster. Are you going to filibuster?
You know that name?
That's Tamara.
Oh, sorry.
I think you should explain that now, so everybody at home and everybody here knows. Now, Jim Swigert's gonna know, but nobody else.
You're not taking my time now, Jim.
I only used a minute.
All right, 2 quick things. First thing is, I'm very sorry to hear about Mary. Where does that leave Carol's position in being able to move forward with giving the violations? Is that going to set us back?
Extremely challenging for us, extremely, because the temp that we get, could be temp or could be full-time. We just don't know that. We are going to train the person that comes in as if they're going to be here forever. And so with that said, it'll be bringing her or him up to speed, and then Carol can get back on deed violation as soon as that happens. Now, Mary hasn't been fully trained. Mary's probably around 25-35% trained. She's only been here a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know you had recently said Carol was going to be able to come to our street in 2 weeks. The other thing is, I had talked to you about concerns about the landscaper in Phase 3, and now that I can ask this question, I know that their contract was not up for renewal, but I wanted to know, as a board, are there things that you can do to intervene because Jerry, I know, has been pulling his hair out. You still have a lot of hair, though. What can you do? I mean, this is ridiculous,
So-
what is happening.
So essentially, they have an extremely favorable termination clause. So essentially, and don't quote me on the exact days, but it's about 7 days that they have to receive a complaint about, say a weed, okay, weeds, right? I take a picture of it and I send it to them certified mail. They got 7 days to receive it and then another 30 days to act on it. And then we have to go to a mediation if that is not resolved. So what my point is, if I'm a subpar landscaper, it would be cheaper if I had the time to do, say, 10 of those a week and just send them every week.
Yep.
I'd hire someone to fix those 10 and save my contract. Well, then it's okay, say we do 20, say we do 30. All of a sudden it becomes a full-time job, and then they are actually, the good thing, the good and bad. The good thing is now they're in compliance and everybody's happy. The bad thing is we're spending 40 hours of staff time just to get them to do their job they're contracted to do.
But what about the equipment?
Well, yeah.
They are not, they're ruining our yards.
Yep.
Every week
Yep.
with equipment that is tearing up our yards. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
this
I
is going
think,
on weekly.
yeah, so I think they would either remedy based on pressure from us, or we would have litigation,
From the board, when is
small
this
claims.
pressure going to happen?
Well, it's through me.
Okay, because
Yeah.
Bill was there for this meeting with them in October, and this is still going on.
I would say it all falls back down to available time to handle. If I'm being out there for 10 violations a week, but just one, as far as the lawnmower size, I don't need
no,
much time
it's
for
not
that.
one. We're
Right,
talking
but
about
just that
detached.
one, I can handle that right now. But on a more of a larger scale that I was just speaking to about holding to them to the terms of their contract, that takes a little bit more time for staff time to be out there, 10, 15 hours a week, just overseeing that, sending the certified letters, following up with them, meeting with their contractors. So it's just a matter of,
You would have happier homeowners if they had a piece of equipment that was not tearing.
I don't know why they just don't go down, I'm venting, but why don't they just go down about a little push mower? I've seen contractors think
Well,
outside the box and do things like
Supervisor
that.
Matt said to me, well, I guess we would, I'd hate it if we'd have to have a push mower.
Well, yeah, no, we are aligned, I think, exactly like you are, and I'm going to address that.
I just might make one comment. When I've been back looking at those drains on your street and the other, that these yards seem to be extremely wet, and I think there's an irrigation issue that probably contributes to what you're talking about with equipment.
There's plenty of irrigation issues as well, as far as overwatering.
Yep, that's what I mean.
Can you give us an update next month on the status of what you've done?
Yes. Sorry, Marlene.
I'm also here to address the landscaping. It is very wet between our houses. I had the irrigation man came and did his thing. I don't get into that box or anything, that's their business. But it's wet. Okay, that's sort of the least of my problems. The other problem is they hit my house once. I felt it inside the house. I came over and told Matt that stucco was chipped off the side of my house, and I couldn't get the ladder and I couldn't get the paint, and I'd have to pay for it. I'll give him this, he came over and painted it for me. But it's still getting run into. It's not wide enough, there's an S, and they come around and they go right up the side of my house. The landscaping is really discouraging to me. I pull my large weeds. I'm a gardener at heart. And the one area in back of our lanai, I go around and stomp down the sod into the mud so it won't die. And I found this big machine part there, so I brought it over to Matt, and he said, oh yeah, it's a wonder that trimmer works without that. But it's just discouraging. I found him to be extremely pleasant and helpful. Quite honestly, I see the truck sitting out in front of my cul-de-sac, and I wondered, because I didn't know they had a new name, and they sit there, and they fly around on the lawnmowers and, you know, tear up everybody's lawn. Maybe nobody else has a problem, but
No, we do.
it is.
What's your address, please?
I live on Askwood off Clairfont, and it's 2604 Askwood.
Thank you, Marlene.
Okay, thank you.
David?
Hi, I'm Dave Nermo. I live over on Anguilla. We've been a resident here, my wife and I, for 8 years. And I've spent 33 years of my life in insurance, commercial insurance brokerage with Aon Corporation. And, you know, in listening tonight, you know, I spent years studying risk management and insurance. And, you know, I heard tonight about all of the contracts that we're entering into with contractors and others. And there's such a thing as contractual liability and what you assume under a contract and what you pass off or you refuse to assume. And, you know, I know that's probably just one issue, and there are other maybe insurance issues, but I mean, the idea is to take a risk management approach where you look at ways to minimize your exposure, you know, by a variety of means, and other ways. But, you know, I just wanted to say that I'd be glad to be on that ad hoc committee. And, you know, this idea of contracts, and, you know, everyone always focuses on the money. How much is it going to cost, and how much can we save, and everything like that. But no one thinks about the liability that you're either exposing yourself to or preventing yourself from having. And that's a key issue that the board should address in these contracts. In other words, a risk management approach. And I'd be glad to try to help and do what I can on that matter. Thank you.
I just had a quick question. I can be super fast. I just had a quick question, and I may have totally missed this because I was a little bit surprised about the increase, the 500%. Is there any indication on where that money's coming from? Have you already determined that's where it's coming from? That was my only. It's going to come from telecommunications.
We did the reconciliation. So at December 31st, we got, what did I say, 214,000 or something. We'll have less than that because we'll have to use it from that. And next year, you can count on an increase in your assessments because we'll have to fund it next year.
That was going to be my
quarterly assessments.
So how long do we know how long we're going to have this increased?
It's a moving target from the loss runs.
Mm-hmm.
So as we move down time, some of those will drop off or they'll get settled.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably 2 or 3 years.
So just for a few years, we'll have to manage this budget of it.
We've had 2 or 3 more years like this year with no significant claims, then it would drop back to the.
Okay.
It's probably 2 to 3 years because the loss runs determine what that premium is, and as we move along, the bad years will drop off. If we have more good years like this year with no claims, in 2 to 3 years we'll probably drop back down into the 30 to 50,000 range.
Okay. And will it have any impact on Clubhouse? Like the Clubhouse
No.
fund is already set, so that's not going to impact
That
us.
is exactly what the reconciliation was, to determine that would not impact it.
Was the increase in the amount of homes in Sandoval that also had an impact on the increase too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, solicit any other questions from the audience? I want to thank you all for coming, and the meeting's adjourned.
It's been adjourned.
Well, the question and answers.